We've got a brand new patch coming in NHL 24, and in this video, we're going to go over all of the patch notes and the impact that it's going to have on the game from 1v1 all the way to World of Chell, as this one addresses a lot of the most talked about feedback from the community. So let's hop into it. All right, so this is for patch 1.2.1. This will be coming on November 23rd at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure that you are done playing your games. They will kick you off the server. It is your fault if you are in a game, but more than likely they'll probably do it randomly hours beforehand or something, and you'll probably get kicked off. But nonetheless, let's talk about the key fixes improvements. All right, fix an issue that caused players to load into games wearing a default black EASHL jersey instead of their own. This is a massive one for World of Chell players. So now that that issue's fixed, that shouldn't have been an issue, even at launch of the game, but it is good to see that that's finally getting resolved because that was a big one in World of Chell. The other ones are hip checks now use default interference logic to create more consistent penalty calls. The player throwing a hip check needs to be completely in the hip check animation for a hip check to be successful. They also added logic that requires a higher relative speed between the hip checker and the hit E to create a large hip check reaction. So again, I'll touch on this. This was definitely prevalent in the higher divisions. You weren't getting a penalty, and you were automatically knocking anyone off the puck if you came into contact at all with anyone, whether it be your ass or your head or your arm, and you were in the hip check animation. You didn't have to be in the full hip check animation, which was like, completely bent over like you're a geriatric or something. You could literally just tap it slightly, and you would like slowly get into it, or quickly get into it, and it would not send someone flying. So that was kind of at the high end of the game, all that was going on in the defensive zone. Super frustrating. You wouldn't get a penalty called. That looks like that is now being addressed. So if you do it and someone doesn't have the puck and they're not in like that slot area above the goaltender, you're going to get an interference call. On top of that, it looks like you're going to need a lot more speed when you actually hit someone with a hip check, or you're not going to get those big, huge flyover animations. Reduced the time the puck needs to be out of the zone to end full pressure from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. That's massive. So when you clear the zone, it's only going to take 3 seconds and you're out of the full pressure system, which is nice. It is not so damning to give up the full pressure meter now, because once you clear it, it's done. Next, we've got reduce the negative attribute multiplier applied to pinned players during full pressure from 20% to 15. So once you get the full pressure bar activated against you, your attributes aren't going to crash as hard as they used to. It's only a 5% decrease, but this is still a slight improvement. The next one, remove the negative energy drain multiplier for a team on the penalty kill to avoid double stacking with full pressure energy drain multiplier. This is massive because when you took a penalty, basically if someone got full pressure activated, when you're on the penalty kill, it already hammered your stats, meaning that you would get completely drained almost immediately when you're on the penalty kill. You're already at a disadvantage on the penalty kill. There shouldn't be any reason why you're getting a huge, a huge decrease there. So big win for them getting rid of that. Greatly reduced the probability of CPU teammates taking penalties and made this consistent across all game styles. Massive win. This shouldn't be in the game. I've stated my theories or my feelings on it. I think that in an online game, I understand why the CPU takes penalties. They want it to somewhat mimic the real product. However, what's happening in NHL 24 is they are just taking far too many penalties. Like, we're talking like 2 or 3 a game, and it's been absolutely brutal, especially as a user. If you're playing someone very good and you're having a good game and your AI takes a penalty and just kills that, it's brutal. So all of these changes, massive improvements from where they were. Again, I don't think it makes up for the fact that these issues were in the game as it stands, but I will say compared to NHL 23, which again is why I think NHL 24 is so much better than 23, is they are at least addressing issues, whereas in 23 they just completely forgot about it. Now let's get into gameplay, because I'll be honest with you, I don't want to overstate it, but just by judging from these patch notes, we are getting a massive shakeup to how the game is played from a meta standpoint, and I don't know if it's going to be good, I don't know if it's going to be bad. It is going to be a massive change though, so let's get into it. So the gameplay, we'll touch on the hip checks again. Hip checks are really, the community feedback, hip checks are really fun to use and useful at making big hits. However, they are too overpowered in non-athletic situations, and the risk of taking a penalty is too low. So all of that is accurate. When you lay a huge hip check and it's clean, awesome. Player goes flying, all of that. Also, super lame when you're in the corner and someone backs their ass straight into you and you get ragged. So, hip checks now use the default interference logic to create more consistent penalty calls. Big win. The player throwing a hip check needs to be completely in the hip check animation for a hip check to be successful. So, again, no tapping the X button and being slightly in the hip check animation before you actually get a big ragdoll animation, which is nice. Players who are getting hip checked can slow down before contact to help reduce the impact and reaction of the hip check. This is actually very interesting. So, if you see someone lining up a hip check a ways away, you can just slow down and it'll almost nullify it. Added logic that requires a higher relative speed between the hip checker and the hitty to create a large hip check reaction. The one thing I hope this doesn't do is that if you hit and lay a clean, fast-moving hip check, that like they just bounce off you or something doesn't happen. I hope that isn't the case, but again, all of these changes I'm ecstatic for. I think it's really going to improve the gameplay so far in 24. Community feedback. While using total control schemes, players are accidentally triggering reverse hit by clicking down the right stick while trying to perform dekes or shots. Wow, this is a pretty big one. While using the total controller scheme, reverse hit will not be triggered while the puck carrier is in a right stick handle or deke animation. So what this means is that if you are using the right stick at all, that would mean to do any deke or queue up a one-timer, let's say, it will not trigger the reverse hit. Now, this is only for total control, it seems. If you're using skill stick, I don't know what's happening with that. It just seems like they're trying to phase it out. Like, I feel like they're going to keep trying to make improvements to total control to kind of get every user into it, but it doesn't look like this is going to be the case for skill stick. The skater must be in a neutral skating / gliding state in order to trigger reverse hit. So you basically have to stop using the left stick right when you go to hit a reverse hit. So it's not like it's out of the game. It's just that you have to be much more deliberate. So if you were going to use a reverse hit, which are very, very effective in the game, you have to right before let go of skating and then do it, or you're not going to actually activate the reverse hit. So again, big W, I think, for a lot of the player base who was very frustrated with the fact that you didn't want to use the reverse hit and you just wanted to do a deke and things like that. Now it looks like you're going to be able to do that pretty easily. Other gameplay fixes. Fixed an issue where AI teammates were triggering stick tie-ups for a few frames, which would cause an interference penalty to be called. Again, they're reducing the AI penalties. Fixed an issue where shoulder check could target a player without the puck even if the player had the puck carrier lined up. So in this instance, what would happen is if you hold down on the hit stick or circle or B and you were trying to defend the rush, it would give you a little speed burst. But then when you go to let go, it would sometimes trigger and activate against another player that's not the one you're trying to get. Super frustrating when it happened. It wasn't super common, but I'm glad they took care of it. Fixed an issue where in Be a Pro, players were unable to perform the between the legs deke while using the total control scheme. W fixed to Be a Pro. We've also released a new tuner set to accompany 1.2.1 improvement. This is what I was alluding to when I mentioned a big change in gameplay. The community feedback. The removal of the R2 RT glitch shots has made shooting less effective and overall less of a viable threat. This results in a player focusing on scoring through very close range shots, backdoor tap-ins, and breakaways, which makes scoring feel predictable. Players want shooting to be a threat, especially in optimal shooting locations, and as your opponent goalie becomes more fatigued. So, if you don't know what the R2 RT shots were, was essentially before this patch and the last one that actually happened, if you held down RT and then shot with it, it would basically make the goaltender think you're going to pass, so they would come off the post a little bit. You could actually get a curve shot, broken, not meant to be in the game, and I'm glad they removed that. However, it seems that it's been more difficult to snipe shots in this game. I know Eki talked about it. He said that scoring was too hard from like in the slot and things like that. I haven't really noticed it all that much. I'll be honest with you. And again, when it comes to gameplay stuff like this, I don't really give my feedback to the developers and like that because I think everyone experiences the game in this aspect quite differently. So this will be interesting because it sounds like to me they are making it where they are rewarding players for shooting more. And it's already kind of rewarding to just shoot on net because of the full pressure system. And what I hope doesn't happen is they've nerfed goalies too much and that you just flick up and it goes in, because while that will definitely give you a higher score, maybe a more exciting experience, it's definitely frustrating when your goalie doesn't make a simple save, and this is a lot being changed. So the next thing for CPU goalies, increased max accuracy error when the goalie is performing a save with a low precision score. This will result in more opportunities for shots to beat the goalie clean and create more unpredictable outcomes, especially as the goalie becomes tired. So again, they are rewarding you for tiring the goalie out. However, they did do a massive fix to that. More on that in just a little bit. But this states to me that you can pick the corner of a goalie. And again, I think that that's not a bad thing. I'm just worried how far they go with it. And again, I think tuners are always going to have to be adjusted, especially with Hut, because there's progression. Attributes increase over the course of the year. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out. Has me a little worried. I don't really have a lot of faith in EA releasing a patch where everything is amazing. Good on paper, but we'll see. The distance required to trigger Thunderclap and Heat Seeker have been reduced by 10 feet. allowing skaters to get closer to the net to blast home shots with these X Factors. Super interesting. So Thunderclap and Heat Seeker, you basically had to activate just inside the blue line. Now it looks like you can almost do it from the top of the face-off dot. I like shooting low far side, and with players like Bobby Orr, for example, that have Heat Seeker, I think this is pretty interesting. Also, that gallery of greats, Al McInnes, that has Thunderclap. Thunderclap has never been all that effective, but if shooting on goaltenders and beating them clean is now being buffed, and Thunderclap is getting a boost and you can do it closer, like that could be really interesting. I'm curious to see how that plays out. Reduce the close to the net power modifier on close range shots from 20 feet to 15 feet to increase the threat of shots from inside the slot. I don't even know. This is the problem with NHL, is that it's not very public with all of these kinds of things. Close to the net power modifier. I didn't know that the closer to the net you were, they actually your shot power because you're closer, so technically it should be faster. I don't know. They reduce the range so that it's closer to the net to increase the threat of shots from inside the slot. So I'm assuming what this means is that this is them trying to give you incentive to get closer to the net to shoot, as opposed to just using Thunderclap and Heat Seeker and sitting back at the point and letting them go. I don't know. Very interested to see how this plays out. I don't know how much it's going to impact close quarters. All right, community feedback. The full pressure impact on the team that is pinned is too powerful and doesn't feel authentic to the situation. Full pressure while on a penalty kill is extra punishing, and the time to end full pressure when the puck is out of the zone is too long. So we mentioned that earlier. Reduce the time the puck needs to from 5 seconds to 3. The negative attribute multiplier has been reduced from 20 to 15%, and they remove the negative energy drain for a team that's on the penalty kill to avoid double stacking with the full pressure energy drain multiplier. Again, all W's there. And it's pretty hard to mess this up because it's a tuner. It's not changing anything. It's literally just changing timing and things like that. All right, another community feedback. Goalies take too long to recover energy when the puck is out of the zone. Having goalies slowly drain energy when the puck in the zone doesn't feel authentic. So removed the energy drain a goalie receives while the puck is in their defending end. What that means is that just holding onto the puck is now not going to tire out the goalie. I still believe it will slowly fill up the full pressure bar, but it will not touch the goalie's energy. That's more like it. A goalie doesn't just get tired when the puck is in their zone not doing anything. So I agree with that. That's a good change. Slightly increase the amount of stamina a goalie loses when performing a save. So all of these things tying in is what I'm super interested in. So this right here, it increases the amount of stamina a goalie loses when they make a save, okay? Stamina drain is mitigated by the durability attribute. So the durability of a goaltender is going to be extremely important from what I'm seeing here. But on top of that, you're now like just 10 times more rewarded to just shoot the puck. Shots now go in cleaner. They've buffed Heat Seeker and Thunderclap. Goalies will not get tired by just holding onto the puck. You essentially have to shoot to get them to be extremely tired, and they regain energy faster. So all of this combined, what it does is it forces action, which again, I don't think is a bad thing, but it's going to be a massive adjustment. So for example, it is making you play defense a little bit more aggressive. It's also making you play offense way more aggressive. It's rewarding you for shots as opposed to holding onto the puck and waiting for the goalie to be tired. So I love this. I'm just very curious to see all of this in play because it could be extremely brutal, but we'll see. Increase the goalie's neutral zone energy recovery to be identical to the energy recovery from when the puck is in the attacking zone. Energy recovery is boosted by the endurance attribute. Very odd that it's not just all boosted by endurance. So when your goalie is gassed and you get out of the zone and into the attacking zone, that's really when they would gain an energy boost. Just getting in the neutral zone wasn't doing anything really. Now, the second you leave the zone, it's basically getting it all the way back up. And the higher the endurance rating, the faster that it will happen. That makes those two attributes very, very interesting on goaltenders. So something to keep an eye out for. Again, that forces you to get the puck out quickly to get rid of the full pressure meter as opposed to like holding on to it for a second, trying to wait for that perfect breakout. You just want to get it out. It's just forcing action, which again, I don't know if it's a bad thing. I think that at the top end, it's probably going to be complained about, but for like the Division 2 and below, I think that's, we'll see. CPU teammates are taking too many penalties, which is causing frustration, especially in competitive games. 100% agree with this. I think that especially in Hut Champs, there shouldn't be any CPU penalties. I do understand that some people like the immersion that your CPU CPU or whatever can take penalties. Greatly reduced the probability of a CPU teammate taking penalties and made this consistent across all game styles. Love this. It was very frustrating to play a good game and your AI just being like, oh, time to take a trip. So other gameplay updates, disabled the chance of auto fighting triggering from hits into the boards. Love that. Reduce the range defending players can push check in front of the net with reduced chance of taking an interference penalty from 40 to 30 feet. I made a TikTok about this just the other day. You can basically shove check by flicking up on the right stick anyone in front of your net when in the defensive zone and you will not take an interference penalty. Technically, it's interference, but in game, it's EA's way of basically allowing you to manually defend the back door because forces, as we know, just aren't being intercepted at all. The pass intercept model is just not there at all, so you get crushed by trying to play manual defense because you're not going to intercept the pass. So what you do instead is you can take your, let's say, the backdoor player that they want to force it to is on the right side, your right-hand defenseman, you can shove check them and knock them down, not take a penalty. It's reducing that from 40 feet to 30 feet, which is great because you could do it literally in the way up in the face-off dots, and that was a little ridiculous to not get a penalty. So increase the chance of a CPU goalie performing a Michigan save attempt from 30 to 80% when in position. This all but eliminates the regular Michigan being in NHL 24. Obviously, it was one of the biggest things talked about because of the one but Michigan being added, and at launch of the game, I know myself personally, I took advantage of it all the time, especially offline. I haven't seen it in Division 1 and 2 and Hut Champs in about a month. I literally haven't seen Michigan go in or against, and I know some people have, but I think it's more prevalent in the lower divisions because there's not as much defense being played. It's super easy to defend. Now the goalie is going to have an 80% chance of being in position to save it, so it more mimics the real-life thing where the Michigan just goes in once a year, so good thing, in my opinion. Adjusted the player of the game period highlight reel scoring weights to provide more highlights for important goals and big saves. It was really just showing, like, hits. A couple issues with Be a Pro. Incorrect line change button callout showing during gameplay. Fix an issue where Be a Pro player ages when saving changes in edit player. Franchise is a big one. Increase the speed of salary scroll when offering coaching contracts. If anyone's played franchise mode, that's a big W. It sounds dumb. And the other one is fix an issue where having the auto sign free agent setting to on didn't always include some of the prospects. Creation zone. Fix an issue where creating a defensive defenseman created a defenseman with a forward playstyle. Huge fix. My God, that was so broken. A couple of audio fixes. The Sabres goal horn, the Red Wings goal horn. The World of Chell soundtrack was playing when previewing emotes. Some other announcer ones. The World of Chell. Again, I don't play a lot of World of Chell, but I will just touch on them quickly. I can't give you any personal feedback. They fixed an issue that caused players to load in wearing the default all-black jersey, which is huge. Fixed an issue where goalie control settings were not being saved. Banners and emblems were not displayed correctly in creation zone. That's big. Where users fix an issue where a user's home equipment preset would be used when the club was wearing their alternate uniforms. And then if you can kind of go through here, again, World of Chell just got so many fixes that, like, I don't know how it was launched in the current state that it was. Hockey Ultimate Team fixed an issue with display of objectives progress in the pause menu during game and various UI fixes, so nothing really there. So a lot of changes coming to gameplay. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below. If you want to check out my streams, twitch.tv/NoSleeves12. Tomorrow, I'll be playing a ton of Rivals to test out the new gameplay as it goes live at noon Eastern Time. I hope to see you there. Have a good one.